in Denver, Colorado to bring you the second round of our tournament of gymnastics. Today's head-to-head matchups feature the best gymnasts in the USA, like Brandy Johnson and Margaret Hewlett. In the first round, Brandy Johnson set 4 individual scoring records for this meet, including a near-perfect 9.9 on floor. Her opponent today is Margaret Hewlett. She is a strong vaulter who scored a 9.8. She too was unstoppable in the first round, sweeping all 4 events. For the men, we will see Lance Ringnauld against Kyle Asano. Lance Ringnauld impressed the judges at the Coliseum with a 9.8 performance on the high bar. He won the all-around by more than 2 points. Kyle Asano came on strong with a flawless floor exercise routine that gave him an early first-round lead. Despite a fall on the pommel horse, he still managed to win his first-round battle. The competition is getting stronger, but the rules remain the same. Only the winner moves on. ESPN, the Total Sports Network, and the United States Gymnastics Federation present the 1989 U.S. Challenge. This is the beginning of the semifinals. Today's matchups feature Brandy Johnson against Margaret Hewlett for the women, and on the men's side, Lance Ringnauld against Kyle Asano. Welcome to the Denver Coliseum. For those of you that have been with us for the past 6 Friday nights, you have met the new gymnasts on the American scene. For those of you joining us for the first time, you're about to meet the best and brightest USA gymnasts that the USA has to offer. Hello, everyone. I'm Leandra Riley, and this is the first of 3 semifinal matchups coming your way on Friday nights on ESPN. Let me introduce to you our expert analyst for this telecast, Olympian Bart Connor. And Bart, let's first talk about the men's matchup. This is the first semifinal. It'll be the first time we get to see the gymnasts for the second time in a stronger competition setting. We have a very strong matchup on the men's side.
Kyle Asano is from the Stanford Gymnastics Center. He's a really bright young gymnast, but he's going to get more than he ever bargained for because he's going to have to go against Lance Ringnauld, and he is currently the top guy in the U.S. program, really on top of his game, and certainly Lance is the guy to beat.
On the women's side, we have a very strong gymnast, Brandy Johnson, going up against Margaret Hewlett.
And Margaret is a big vaulter. She got a 9.8 in the preliminary rounds, and she looks very strong. She'll have to not make any mistakes and hope that Brandy makes a mistake if she's going to keep close contest with her.
All right, again, it is a semifinal competition. The winners will advance to the finals. The losers, well, they will go home. When we come back, it's head-to-head gymnastics from Denver, Colorado. Welcome back to Denver, Colorado for the 1989 U.S. Gymnastics Challenge. For those of you that have not been watching gymnastics every Friday night here on ESPN, let us explain our format. We began with 12 female gymnasts. They went head-to-head on 6 consecutive shows. We have now moved into our second round, and you can see there are 6 semifinalists. Tonight, we will be focusing on Johnson and Hewlett. Brandy Johnson against Margaret Hewlett will be tonight's telecast. Next Friday, you can see the next semifinal matchup, and the following Friday, the third, and so forth. On the men's side, it pretty much was the same story. We began with 12 male gymnasts who competed on 6 consecutive Friday nights here on ESPN, and only 6 have advanced to our semifinal round. Tonight it is semifinal number 1, Lance Ringnauld against Kyle Asano. Next Friday night you can catch the other semifinal, and so forth. But right now let's begin with our men's competition. We are following the Olympic rotation. Floor exercise is the first event, and Lance Ringnauld is our first competitor.
This will be an interesting matchup between Ringnauld and Asano, especially on the floor exercise, because coming into this round, their qualifying scores, Lance had a 9.55, and this is one of Kyle's best events. He had a 9.3, so they're pretty evenly matched on floor exercise to open the competition.
Lance Ringnauld was a member of our 1988 Olympic team. At 18 years of age, he was the youngest member of the team.
Wow, what a beautiful mount. That's a laid out 1.5 twisting, 1 and 3. Tremendous leg flexibility in the side splits, press to a handstand. And look at that flexibility there. By doing a press to handstand, he fulfills a requirement that the judges are looking for. He has to do a strength move, and a press to handstand on the floor fulfills that requirement. His second pass, front through to double full, punch front 1 1/4. Nice. Then spring front. The gymnasts have between 50 and 70 seconds to complete the exercise. This is also a requirement. A 1 foot or 1 arm balance has to be performed. Most gymnasts use a Y scale there in the corner to fulfill that requirement and catch their breath for the last tumbling run. Oh! Almost sat down in that tuck double back. He was really airborne in that. A little higher than he thought he was going to be.
What a great Y scale he had, though, in the corner. So, such flexibility, such a great setup, and then too bad he finished like that.
This is a really nice move. He does 1 1/2 twists, 1 3/4 flips. Notice he's laid out and then pikes only just a little bit. And the last part of the element, really nice work to a straddle jump punch front. His second run, good combination of front tumbling there with a front step out through to back tumbling here. Double full back to front tumbling, a punch front 1 1/4. Good combination.
Great form throughout, and the score that Lance Ringnold received for his floor exercise routine, 9.45. A little bit less than what he achieved in the first round. That might open the door for Kyle Lozano. Now it is head-to-head competition, but the 6 apparatus are not judged separately. What matters here is the all-around total. The 6 scores will be added together, and whoever has the highest score will move on to the final round. We are not adding in any of the scores or totals from the first round. Everybody begins with a clean slate.
This is a very good event for Kyle. Beautiful, full in bike. Oh!
Saved it. Covered it.
He really handled the landing, although he was way over. Both of these guys, Lance was over rotating, and Kyle had trouble. They're probably pretty pumped up tonight. So flared circles. Oh, and up to handstand and a pirouette, and then down to a pancake. There's his press to handstand. He needs to hold that for 2 seconds to get the requirement of the strength value. Whip, whip. Here's his 1-legged balance, the oblique scale. You heard the bell in the background. That signals that his 50 seconds have gone by. He's got 20 more to complete it. He'll do that with no problem. And a tuck double back.
17-year-old Kyle Lozano, a senior at Wilcox High School.
He was very high on this, and most importantly, he had a little too much rotation. It's a full in to a piked back. He's way up there and pulls it around just a little farther than he needed to, but he did a good job in covering up and continuing. These are the circles, double leg circles in the flared position. He's also twisting back against himself. And then he cranks it up to a handstand to a pirouette. Very difficult combination. His last tumbling run, of course, was a tuck double back. A little sloppy in the air. Could be a little cleaner.
The young man from Sunnyvale, California, Kyle Lozano, gets an 8.95 in the floor exercise. Welcome back to the 1989 U.S. Challenge. After 1 rotation, Lance Ringnold leads Kyle Lozano by 1/2 of a point, 9.45 to 8.95. Now let's introduce you to the women. They are going to begin on the vaulting competition. It is Brandy Johnson against Margaret Hewlett. Brandy Johnson will vault first. The women are allowed to compete on 2 separate vaults, and it is the higher of the 2 vaults that will count.
In this challenge between Brandy and Margaret, this is probably the event where they're most evenly matched. They both do some very powerful vaults. Brandy's going to do a Yurchenko with a full in the laid out position. Wow. She's so
not much room for
powerful.
improvement there.
Well, I'm sure she's going to concentrate next time on sticking it, but boy, in terms of technique and power, you just can't do it any better than that. Good speed, the round off onto the board. She powers back into the horse and a tremendous push off the horse, keeping her body perfectly straight. If anything, Brandy has too much juice. She tends to overdo things because she's so powerful. Plenty of height, plenty of rotation, and that's the reason for the hop. She's going to try and hang it up just a little bit more, so hopefully she can drop straight down on the landing and stick it.
You see the score for that first vault, 9.875. Now in the first round, she received a 9.925, so she is capable of doing better than the 9.875 you just saw her get.
So she's going to try this time to get into the horse with a good block and try and hang it up just a little more.
Oh, that was good.
Actually, she surprised herself a little bit because she hit her hands very lightly on the horse, but she compensated beautifully and knew just exactly how to pull the rotation around. She didn't get the same kind of push. She was really on her fingertips almost, but she is such a star. She really knows how to handle that.
Let's take a look at her fingers on this replay.
Watch this. She really overpowers it again, and her hands just barely touch on. She doesn't get the push that she needed, but wow, she really knows how to compensate.
And Brandy Johnson's score for the second vault, 9.90. That is the score that will carry. Again, a reminder, in the first round, Brandy Johnson shattered all of the U.S. Challenge records with all of the standards that she attained in each of the 4 events. Right now, you are looking at Margaret Hewlett, her challenger this day. She is from Blue Springs, Missouri, and trains under Al Fong.
She signaled to the judges with that point number 491. She's going to do the same vault. Okay, that's a very nice vault, actually. She took one step, but it's the same vault we saw Brandy Johnson use. It's a Yurchenko in the laid-out position with a full. Let's see what happens here. She does a round off onto the board, goes back to the horse. She doesn't quite have the height and the distance that you saw Brandy Johnson, but still, technically, it's a very strong vault.
9.725. The score she wants to beat is 9.9.
Once again, technically the vault was very nice. All she needs now is to spot that landing. There it is. Oh, almost stuck it too. You could tell right from the beginning that she had a good, powerful block and a good, steady push. She doesn't run as fast as Brandy does, but she has really good control as she goes back to the horse. Nice block with the hands, a little higher, a little cleaner in the air, and she really fights for that landing.
9.80, the score for Margaret Hewlett on her second vault, and like Brandy Johnson, the second vault is the better vault. The 9.80 that Margaret Hewlett receives is 1/10 of a point behind Brandy Johnson after one rotation. It is a cumulative all-around score that counts most, so she is only 1/10 of a point behind with 3 rotations remaining. Right now, let's go back to our second event for the men, and that is the pommel horse, and Kyle Asano is up first.
If Kyle's going to keep a close competition running here with Lance, he's going to need to do a very good job here. He had a lot of trouble in the qualifying. So far, so good. He had his trouble in the qualifying round right at the opening of the exercise. A little sloppy form, but he's fighting it well here. He's rushing a little bit through the single leg work. Back travel down to the end, handstand. Oh! He was going to do a handstand and a full pirouette off. And he had a little trouble there as he was powering up to the handstand. You can see he's a young man. He has a lot of difficulty. He can do a lot of good tricks, but he has not yet developed the kind of strength and control that you'll see from some of the more mature competitors. He did a back travel down. Now watch, he cranks it up to a handstand here, straddled, and he was going to start to do a full pirouette, and his body was a little loose. And when you have loose body, it really is hard to control those handstand pirouettes.
You could really notice it in his lower legs too. Knees bent a little bit, toes were flexed instead of pointed.
Of course, he's going to score a lot better than he did in the preliminaries. He scored only 7.9 in the qualifying round, so.
Much better number right here. 8.45 for Kyle Asano on the pommel horse. Kyle Asano is just a senior in high school.
In fact, he's training at the Stanford Gymnastics Club under the coach Sadao Hamada, who is the coach at Stanford, although he doesn't plan on competing in college.
It's kind of an interesting trend in men's gymnastics, not going to the college ranks and just training for the international circuit.
Speaking of that, one man who is doing that is Lance Ringnold, who's next on the pommel horse. He has opted to not go to the University of Nebraska as he had originally intended, to build his schedule around the international competitive season, not the NCAA collegiate season. Beautiful toe point. Oh, he's having trouble, but he fights it. Handstand, down into the middle, single leg work. Travel to the end, watch this back off. I love that dismount. You know, when that dismount was first performed, it was kind of a gimmicky trick. Most of the hardcore gymnastics fans said, come on, that's no fun. And yet Lance he sticks by it, and he does it tucked, and it's clean, and it really looks good. If you can do it like he can do it, it really does look good. Of course, nobody can do it quite like Lance. That's great.
Gets your attention. In the first round, he received a 9.6 for the pommel horse performance. Obviously, that score does not carry. The score he wants to beat is 8.45, and that's what Kyle Asano.
You know, he had a little trouble, and we noticed he broke form, as did Kyle. Lance is just a little stronger and a little bit more mature as a competitor, and he didn't allow himself to get completely out of control. He fought it very well.
And he is now 1 full point ahead of him just on this event alone with a 9.45 to Kyle Asano's 8.45. We'll be back. Welcome back to the 1989 U.S. Gymnastics Challenge. I'm Leandra Riley along with Bart Connor, and we are at the Denver Coliseum. These are the semifinals. And after one event, a very close matchup here between Brandy Johnson and Margaret Hewlett. Just 1/10 of a point difference between these two ladies. The men have moved, however, to their third event. Lance Ringnold and Kyle Asano after two. Well, it's Ringnold on top by a 1.5 margin. Still rings is next. Our first man up will be Lance Ringnold.
Typical of the Lance Ringnold style, he does every trick in the book on the rings. He needs to make sure he's really locked out in his handstands because he tends to get just a little loose late in the exercise. But once again, the guy can do everything. Those are the leather hand guards with the dowel rods that help improve your grip on some of the giant swinging elements. You have to do strength moves like that. Back kip around to a cross. Locate back up rise to the hand. He's not quite locked out in the handstand. He needs to show a really tight line there. It's a good combination. Those two moves back to back were called a Yamawaki to a whippet. And then he rolls around to that position, which was first introduced in international competition by Gennady Krisin from the Soviet Union. Hollow back, notice he's just a little loose there. He needs to hold that line locked out. Very pretty layout double. He'll score very well with that routine.
At the Junior Pacific Alliance just 1 year ago, this man finished first in the all-around and tied for third on the rings.
This is a really good combination. Coming out of a rather weak handstand, he really swings into this piked Yamawaki to whip it, which was actually invented by another Japanese gymnast, Honma. A lot of funny names. I know the terminology sounds pretty crazy, but this one's pretty easy. This is a laid out double backflip. Not a difficult term for that, and certainly performed beautifully by Lance Ringnold.
Certainly very descriptive. The score for Lance Ringnold, 9.65. That's the exact same score he achieved in the preliminary round. And now Kyle Asano has his work cut out for him. The 17-year-old from Redwood City, California, will try to better the mark he achieved in the first round of 8.65.
Rings is a very difficult event for the young junior gymnast because it takes an incredible amount of upper body strength that you many times just have to mature into. Kyle had trouble in the qualifying rounds here on rings. Good start, kip to cross, and a back kip to a handstand. There's a giant, he's swinging a little bit. Whip it, swing, handstand. You can see he doesn't quite have the polish that we saw Lance Ringnold show. He can do a lot of swing elements, but he doesn't quite have the control. As you can see here in the handstand, he's not quite locked out. His hands are turned in. But he knows how to swing. He can do good swing elements, and as he gets a little bit older, he'll get a little stronger and be in more control on the strength elements.
And the high school senior, who stands 5 feet 5 inches tall, dismounts from the rings.
He bails forward here. Does a Yamawaki in the pike position, the same move that we saw Lance Ringnold do. Back up, rise to an L. He presses to the handstand. As you can see here, he's having trouble controlling the rings. His hands are turned in and his arms aren't completely locked out.
Once they start swinging, what can you do to stop them?
Well, if you have to bail at the right side of the swing so that you can compensate for the swing and kill it at the bottom, and he did that beautifully, setting up for the dismount.
The score for Kyle Asano's ring performance, 9.10, a much better number than he received in the preliminary rounds, but still not quite good enough to overtake Lance Ringnold. And now we are ready for the second event for the women. And you are looking at Margaret Hewlett, who is standing by the uneven parallel bars. She is just 5 feet 1 inches tall, and although she was born in St. Louis, her hometown is Lee Summit, Missouri.
Kip cast handstand pirouette. Now she's at the high bar. Reverse hex, she's in a little close, but she handles it. She has to traverse both bars. She works some elements on the high bar, goes down to the low bar, picks back up to the high bar here with the giant to a pike double back. Oh, over-rotated.
Margaret Hewlett, coached by Al Fong.
The reverse hex, you can see she does a straddle back over the bar, and she's in really close. Just barely makes it over. This straddle back, she goes back to make a transition to the low bar, then she's back up on the high bar for her pike double backflip. Good height, really tight pike, and she pulls it around just a little too far.
What a dubious assignment to draw Brandy Johnson in the semifinals. Her score for her uneven parallel bar routine, 9.0. Again, this is her opponent, Brandy Johnson. In the preliminary round, Brandy Johnson set records on all events: the vault, the uneven, the balance beam, the floor exercise, breaking standards that were set back in 1981 and 1982.
This is a very explosive event for Brandy. However, it is certainly one of her most inconsistent events. Wait till you see these high-flying moves. Right to the handstand. Nice reverse hack. That's the best I've seen it. There's the front. See, she's in a little tight there. Cast handstand pirouette. She fulfilled the requirement of working the low bar. Giant half-half. Giant to a really high tuck double. Boy, she's powerful.
What a routine by Brandy Johnson. And she deserves that hug from Kevin Brown. She's the lady who finished highest among U.S. competitors at the Olympic Games in Korea.
This reverse hack is really hot. She's not only high, but look at the perfect form. She transitions right here to a front between the bars, and she's in very close. But she does a good job at not breaking the rhythm and keeping it moving. Tough stuff. She did the giant full over the top to another giant to this tuck double back, which is just off the ceiling. She just kicks out and sails in the landing.
The score for Brandy Johnson's performance, 9.80. She has a commanding lead now over Margaret Hewlett. It's 9/10 of a point. Welcome back to Denver, Colorado. Lance Ringnauld against Kyle Asano. A difference of 2.05 advantage Ringnauld. On the women's side, Brandy Johnson leads Margaret Hewlett by 9/10 of a point. And right now, the men are ready to move to their third event. The women are on their their third event, rather. The men are on their fourth. Brandy Johnson's up first on the balance beam. She'll be followed by Margaret Hewlett, and the men will move over to vaulting.
Brandy scored a 9.825 in the preliminaries of this competition on the balance beam. This is the one event that she is certainly most nervous about because she's so explosive. She's a lot like Mary Lou Retton in that they're powerful and they tend to just overpower elements and overdo things and then just go flying off the beam. Look at the power as she does 2 switch leg split leaps back to back. Watch this acro series. Back handspring layout. Nice. The judges are looking for an acro series like that, a full turn like that, a gymnastics series, which is a series of leaps, jumps, or turns, and then a mixed series, which is gymnastic elements as well as acro elements. Wow. That's the best punch front in the world on balance beam. So high and so easily done.
Makes it look easy.
There's the swing through layout to the turn and the side leap. That's a mixed series. Here's a dismount, round off tuck double. Oh, she opened up just a hair early. She was very high, had good rotation. I think she thought that she needed to open up.
Does fatigue ever play a factor when you're heading into a dismount on the beam after all that time being up there?
Certainly the physical strength is there, but in terms of mental concentration, she's already done so many beautiful elements like this, flip-flop to the layout. The round-off tuck double back, she's so powerful. Good reach, nice takeoff, good pull. She kicks out a little bit early right there, looking for the landing, and misjudged it just a little bit.
The score for Brandy Johnson's balance beam routine is 9.725. And 9.725 is just 1/10 of a point behind what she received in the preliminary rounds, but certainly good enough to keep her out in front, depending, of course, on what Margaret Hewlett does, and she is up next.
This is one of her best events in the qualifying round. She scored a 9.6. Round off, back handspring onto the beam, beautiful. Here's her first acro series, back handspring layout. There's the Y scale. We saw the men do that on floor exercise.
Margaret Hewlett is 5 feet 1 inches tall. Brandy Johnson is 4'11".
Full turn. Nice layout. That's 2 in a row. Here's the other one. Perfect, both of them. Boise does those very easily. There's a gymnastics series of leaps. And there's that great dismount, which we saw the other day. It's a split leap to a punch front with a 1.5 twist, or what they call a Rudy.
And what a commitment that is to come off a leap into a tumbling element.
Let's look for these combinations now. This is a back handspring to a layout that fulfills the requirement of the acro series with flight. And then we're looking for that mixed series. Here it comes in the form of a dismount. Split leap right to a Rudy. Good job. Original dismount.
And Margaret Hewlett is taking the challenge quite seriously. Even though she knew she was going up against the 1989 American Cup all-around champion, she didn't bat an eye. She's out here to do her best, and we've just seen it on the balance beam. The score she wants to beat is 9.725, and the score that she gets is 9.40. So Margaret Hewlett is far from quitting. She's still very close to Brandy Johnson in this semifinal matchup. Let's move over to the men's competition in the vault. The men are allowed to vault only once. Kyle Lozano is up first.
Remember, as opposed to the women, the men only get one vault, and it has to be good. Okay, he was really short of rotation, but he did a good job at getting his feet down before his nose landed on the mat. This is a vault called a Kazumatsu in the piked position. Didn't get quite the push that he needed, and he was flailing a little bit. Look at that. He does a great job at not allowing his hands to slap on the mat when he landed. That would have been a major deduction. Once again, he does the cartwheel on, backflip off in the pike position with a 3/4 turn, and he does a good job at fighting the landing.
And
saved it.
In the preliminary rounds, his vault was scored as a 9.15.
Come on, Lance.
We'll wait for the judges' numbers here. It is 9.00 for Kyle Asano on the vault. So the 17-year-old from California now can just sit back and watch as Lance Ringnold steps up to execute his only vault.
Lance does a similar vault. Let's see if we can note the differences. Powerful. There you go. That's a Kasamatsu vault. That was in the laid out position as opposed to Kyle's vault in the piked position. He had so much more power, he could afford to lay it out. Cartwheel on. Back with a full off. Little hop on the landing, but he keeps his body in a good straight position.
A fine job by Kyle Lozano, and the judges award him accordingly. He receives a 9.55, so he outdistanced himself from Kyle Lozano by 0.55 after the vaulting event. We are ready to move into the final rotation. Brandy Johnson leads Margaret Hewlett by a 1.225 margin. Now the men are moving into their 5th of 6 rotations. Lance Ringnold ahead of Kyle Lozano by 2.6. The men are up first, and it is the parallel bars that are our next apparatus. Lance Ringnold will be up first, followed by Kyle Lozano.
In the qualifying round, Lance scored a 9.75 on his parallel bar routine. I think it was the best parallel bar routine I've ever seen him put together. All the difficulty, good clean elements, and everything was right on. He hit every handstand. Once again, Lance does everything in the book. He opens up with a strength move, a planche, Pete straddle cut. That was in a little tight. Giant on the end. Giant front uprise. Reverse stutz. There's a back toss. And a Diamondov. Once again, every trick you can do. Front uprise, swing pirouette. It's a stutz. Another stutz. He does a lot of tricks. Oh, short on that pike double back.
Great routine by Lance Ringnold. Unfortunately, just a little bobble on the landing.
There's the dismount. He does a pike double back. He kind of peels it off just a little early. Doesn't set it up enough, kind of rushes it, and he had to pike in really tight, but he did a good job at making it around and only taking a minor deduction on the landing rather than perhaps putting his hands down for a major deduction.
There you see the score, 9.55. It's 0.2 of a point less than he scored in the preliminary round. And now Kyle Asano, who received a 9.2 in the preliminary round, is up. Kyle Asano is the youngest of 3 children. He has 1 brother and 1 sister.
Kyle is doing much better in this round of competition than he did in the preliminaries. He seems more confident. He seems more like he feels like he belongs out here in this important national event. Oh, Peach to a handstand. He had trouble there.
He fought back, though, and that's impressive.
There's that interesting combination, single leg cut to a back upright straddle cut. This routine is weak in terms of difficulty. There aren't enough big tricks in here. Speaking of big tricks, though, that pike double back was one of the most difficult dismounts being done, and he overdid it. From the handstand, he swings down, keeps his legs straight, if you'll notice. Pulls around 2 flips, more like 2 1/4 flips.
Landed on his heels and slid back.
This is a better angle to see exactly what happens. Looked like everything was pretty good. He pulled it around just a little farther than he needed to.
The score for Kyle Asano on the parallel bars, 8.80. And the final event now for the women is floor exercise. And up first is Margaret Hewlett.
Margaret scored a 9.6 in the preliminary round. She's very powerful in front tumbling. Watch her opening move. She goes handspring, front, double full to a handspring. Very unusual. You see most gymnasts open with back tumbling elements like double backflips. Front step out, through to full. Show 3 different acrobatic series. She opened with the handspring front double full. She did front through to a full. And here's her 3rd run, handspring front 1.5, back handspring.
Margaret Hewlett completes her performance at the semifinals here at the Denver Coliseum. She doesn't seem very pleased with her performance, but I thought she did a good job out there.
Well, she has some very good elements. This handspring front with a double full is a very difficult and unique mount. She knows, though, that she needs to improve her back tumbling, because on this run here, she does a front step out through to a round-off back handspring, back with a full. She needs much more difficulty in her back tumbling, although her front tumbling is world-class. And she finished with a really nice handspring front, this time with a 1.5 twist. That's called a Rudy, through to a back handspring.
And Margaret Hewlett, who received a 9.6 in the prelims, gets a score this day of 9.575. And that will be her final score in these semifinals of this 1989 U.S. Challenge. And now a crowd favorite, Brandy Johnson, will step out into the podium. She received a 9.9 in the preliminaries, so you are in store for a big treat on the floor. Just 4 feet 11 inches tall, but she's a powerhouse. And you can just enjoy watching her dance.
look at the power in her leaps as well as her tumbling. Watch this combination in the second run. Round off whip, whip, flip flop, tuck double. Here's the last run. It's a double back. Almost too easy for her.
Well, if this is the future of American gymnastics, the future is very bright indeed. Brandy Johnson wowing the crowd at the Denver Coliseum with a fine floor exercise performance.
The opening tumbling run is a full-in pike. There's the round-off back handspring. She's up in the air. There's the full, and the pike back comes right there. No problem. I love this combination. It's whip tumbling, round-off whip. Whip, yes. Then to the back handspring, to the tuck double.
Wow, what height.
And usually you're pretty worn out by the end of the routine, especially at altitude as we are here in Denver. But look at how she totally does this tuck double back easily. She kicks out, standing straight up and down.
And the score for Brandy Johnson on the floor exercise, a resounding 9.825. Needless to say, she's eliminated Margaret Hewlett. She is in the finals. The semifinals of the 1989 U.S. Gymnastics Challenge are over for this first rotation. Brandy Johnson has defeated Margaret Hewlett 39.250 to 37.775. But it is not yet over for the men. Kyle Asano against Lance Ringnauld. Although it is a 3.35 difference, the horizontal bar is still to be competed. And up first on the high bar is Kyle Asano.
Kyle has some very good elements in his high bar routine. He was a little sloppy in the qualifying round. I'm sure he'll try to keep a little bit better form today. Remember, the judges are looking for one element of at least B value with an L grip, which is a eagle or an invert giant swing. We'll point those out. They're also looking for an element with flight value, a big release move. He opens with a stalder. There comes a release move right there. Nice reverse heck, just where he wanted it to be. So he's fulfilled that requirement. His next requirement here as he jams, goes to the eagle giant swings. Stalder. Comes his dismount, layout double, really high. Good job, good finish for Kyle Asano.
And he needed that because he struggled so on the parallel bar, rallied back on the horizontal bar. This his final appearance in this 1989 U.S. Gymnastics Challenge semifinal matchup.
He looked rather uncomfortable in the qualifying rounds, and yet today he really looks a lot sharper and a lot more confident. He's a little close on this, but boy, is he high. Laid out double backflip. Good job.
The score for Kyle Asano is better than his preliminary score. He gets a 9.35, which is better than the 9.2 he received in the first round. Lance Ringnauld scored very well in the preliminaries on this event, getting a 9.8.
This is without a doubt Lance's favorite event. He loves to play on the high bar. He can do all kinds of big tricks. And he has great form, great technique. Pirouette, one arm. And watch this series here. It could be a reverse hecht to a gingham. Wow. Yes. Every time it's the same. Very consistent. There's the jam to the eagle giant swings. He's fulfilled those requirements. Hop full pirouette. That was nice. Okay, watch this dismount. It's a laid out double twisting double.
That's our winner.
This kid is so amazing. He's only 18 years old. He does all of the hard tricks. And look at him, he's so comfortable. He's so confident. It's like no sweat, coach, as he talks with his coach, Ed Birch. Watch, this is the reverse heck, legs together, regrasp, perfect tap, and a ginger, which is a backflip with a half twist. This is the dismount. It's a double twisting, double back, laid out. Watch, he does a layout flip the first one, and now he cranks 2 twists in the second one. Boom. What a talent.
And Lance Ringnold has pushed himself into the record books. A 9.9, that betters a standard of 9.7, set by Jim Hartung and Peter Vidmar back in 1981. Lance Ringnold, our winner, not on high bar, but in the all-around. Welcome back to the Denver Coliseum. I'm Leandra Riley along with Bart Connor, and the first of our 3 final berths have been chosen. Lance Ringnold has defeated Kyle Lozano 57-55 to 53-65. Lance Ringnold advances. On the women's side, it is Brandy Johnson over Margaret Hewlett, 39.250 to 37.775. Bart Connor standing by with both of our winners.
First of all, congratulations to our winners, Lance and Brandy, easily qualifying to the final round. Brandy, how does it feel now to be sort of leading the way for the American women gymnasts? Do you like that role of being on top right now?
It feels really great. I hit my routines, and it just going out there and performing feels really good.
If you ever have any problem, it's because you're so powerful you tend to almost overdo things. What do you do about that?
I just try to control it somehow.
Well, we wish you best of luck in the finals. Lance, you, of course, are really coming into your own now as a leader of the U.S. men's program. What's next for you? Where would you like to improve?
Well, today, even I still had a few problems all around that could be fixed up. But I guess as far as in the future, to clean up my compulsories and maybe add a little more difficulty and get a little more cleaner, I think.
Well, best of luck in the finals.
Thank you very much.
Leandra?
A fine job by Lance Ringnold defeating Kyle Lozano, and of course Brandy Johnson over Margaret Hewlett. You'll get a chance to see Lance and Brandy again. Stay with us. Bart and I will be back with a recap in a moment. Our first semifinal is over. Brandy Johnson has defeated Margaret Hewlett. Brandy Johnson is our first finalist. She must now wait and see who her other 2 challengers will be. On the men's side, Lance Ringnold is our champion, defeating Kyle Lozano. He too must now wait and see who the other 2 finalists will be in this gymnastics challenge. And Bart, it has really been a grueling competition for our gymnasts. Your thoughts on the format?
Well, I like the format, and I think the athletes like the format, although I have to admit, neither Lance nor Brandy have had any really serious challengers in the opening rounds. They'll have to be strong in the finals.
I'm sure they're going to get some stiff challenges. In this type of competition, it is so difficult working out over all these days. Any advice to the finalists?
Well, no question, consistency is a real important key. And I think in a way this is good for the U.S. team because it is really stressing that no matter how good you were on the qualifying rounds, the scores do not carry over. So in order to win in the finals, you have to start from zero and you have to be consistent.
All right, the clean slate might help some, could hurt others. I'd like to thank you, Bart Connor. It's been a pleasure working with you. And a reminder that you can watch the second semifinal, Lisa Panzaroni against Cheryl Dundas, Conrad Vorsinger against Mark Warburton on July 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Once again, I'm Leandra Riley. Congratulations to Lance Ringnold and Brandy Johnson. So long, everyone, from the 1989 U.S. Gymnastics Challenge.